Okay, here I am in the bed, board of directors. That's good. That's good. Okay, we'll have that in French and English, but we'll have it in English. A lot of people read my blog in English. And you are?
I'm Gaetan Thomas, NB Power CEO.
So, how's your nerves? Pretty shaky? Or,
No, I think our nerves are actually holding very good because, our employees out there have worked really, really hard under difficult circumstances, a lot of damage out there, and but more importantly, our customers have been very patient and understanding, and
they had no choice, huh?
Well, they give us a lot of support. Stories I heard, for instance, children bringing cupcakes to our crews, and with a big thank you sign on it, all over the place, ice cream, sandwiches. People, dancing. I actually went into many of the subdivisions myself and met a lot of customers, and I haven't seen anyone angry at us.
You weren't, they wouldn't try to tell me there was no mod squad prepared to hang you from a tree somewhere? There was no tree left, that's right.
Well, there was nobody ready to hang anybody.
Nope.
Actually, they were happy to see us there, and the first comment to most people was, "Am I ever happy to see you?" And then suddenly when they would notice who I am, they would say, "Oh, even you here?" And I said, "Well, it's important for me to be out there."
Good public relations skill.
And everybody was really, really open to us.
Okay, when did you first? Thursday night. Friday I left, I had to drive a car to Batters. And then I said, well, the storm might hit in Miramichi. It's like playing roll the dice. You don't know where the storm is going to hit. You had a meeting here. How did you first find out? Yeah. How did you know where it's coming here? What's the history?
Well, we knew that the storm was going to come, and possibly hit, the Maritimes, as early as, Tuesday or Wednesday. So we have a group that really gets together. They watch the storm closely, and by Friday we knew that it was going to hit, close to us, and we had a lot of people on standby. And we talked to our neighbors, like Nova Scotia Power.
Some people say there were more in Nova Scotia, the workers. Is that true? Or?
Well, that's not true. I mean, Nova Scotia was not hit as hard as we were, and we had, a lot of contractors on board. But what people have to understand here is that when there's a storm like this, we also have contractors, that are on
What's a contractor? What's a contractor?
A contractor is basically an entrepreneur who runs, has equipment and has line workers, actually many retired line workers and a lot of young workers as well, a combination of experience and youth.
Would that be,
they offer service.
Would that be non-union?
Some are union, some are non-union. They're both.
Is there a lot of contractors in this province?
Probably 15 types of contractors. They are hired by the phone companies. They are hired by NB Power. They are hired by Nova Scotia.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Maritime Electric. And
so the storm was coming.
The storm was coming.
Was it going to hit harder in Nova Scotia? Or?
That was the early indication that it would hit harder in Nova Scotia. So as we have the same resources, we share the same resources or the same contractors, we talk amongst ourselves. So we put some on standby. Nova Scotia put some on standby. We put our crews on standbys because it was coming in a weekend, so we want to make sure that nobody was away. Like in summertime, people go away on vacation, so we held everybody back. And when the storm started, it started actually a little earlier than predicted in New Brunswick. It actually went through Nova Scotia a little faster, and when it arrived in New Brunswick, it actually slowed down.
When did it arrive? What time was it?
Around 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning. And it kept going for a good 14 to 16 hours, and really 100 kilometers an hour plus, but there were pockets where the wind must have reached hurricane type of speeds because the damage is 100-year-old trees that were uprooted completely, trees in front of my house that snap at the base.
What time did you find out? What time did you say to yourself, uh-oh?
It was around 6 o'clock.
In the morning.
I started to say, this is going to be a big one.
So what did you do?
Well, first thing is I start monitoring, lost power immediately.
Here?
Yeah, monitoring, on the BlackBerry, I have all access to the data. Then I was looking at, the damages outside. You could see things flying all over. And then by 9 o'clock, trees start falling down around my place. At that point, I had no power for 2 hours myself. And at that time, I said, I got to figure out a way to get to work because, without, my BlackBerry is going to run out of power and I won't have any data.
Just like, my God, you mean you have to do things the old ways? In the old days?
Well,
no information highway?
No, we have, at this place, we have generators. This place did not lose power. Downtown Fredericton was not hit as hard as uptown because it's lower, but we did have quite a few street lights that were not working. Branches were flying all over when I came to work. And we had, already, by Sunday morning, we already had moved 155 crews on the ground.
155 crews?
Yeah,
that's
on
a
the
lot.
ground, on Sunday morning. And
do they get paid double time because of that?
Well,
the contract is it double time,
is
or is
usually
it
on the weekend double time?
Is it okay?
But in terms of the readiness, we were ready, and then we start moving crews. But on Saturday, it was very hard to move crews, so we had to wait in some areas. Roads were blocked, trees were flying. So Saturday was mostly an assessment day, and we restored a lot of customers remotely, like we have remote switch, so people would clear the area by patrolling. But it was too dangerous to be up in buckets or climb poles on that first day.
Was there a lot of people? I wasn't here. Was a lot of people walking around?
There was quite a few people walking around initially, but I think when the wind really picked up, you couldn't see many people on the streets. It was dangerous. Things were flying. Signs were down. Like I said, I've never seen a storm like this in my whole life in New Brunswick, and many line workers will say that this was the largest storm that we've ever faced. It hit 85% of the province, and I know that people will say, like, Katrina. When we compare it to Katrina, we compare it to the impact on the grid, okay? Like, there was 57% of our customers that were hit, with the storms. It peaked at 140,000 customers out of service, which is, more than twice the amount of customers that were out in the December storm.
I was in Miramichi, and that's where I first seen. There was no radio in the car, and big oak trees in Miramichi just snap in half.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, the next day I went over Gaetan.
Yes.
And even up north,
yes,
it was bad. It was
yes. Up north was bad. They didn't have as many outages. They probably had around 7,000 outages. Fredericton had 54,000 outages. The difference, I believe, is that up north, the storm passed faster and there was less rain, less precipitation up north. What happened in Fredericton and all up to Miramichi, that includes Miramichi, that includes Woodstock, St. Stephen, that big area really received between 140 and 150 millimeters of rain. And when the soft ground, it actually enabled with the wind actually uprooting of all trees. The combination of the wind and the soft ground made that happen. So up north they had as strong winds but didn't have as much rain, so the ground was, that's why there's less trees. However, around the coast, like in Caracat area, obviously Tracadie along the coast, they were hit hard too.
How come there's complaining in Nova Scotia? Even the Premier stepped forward and said he wants an inquest or an inquiry or whatever. When was Nova Scotia Power sold?
Many years ago.
20 years ago?
Probably more than that.
And is that a problem?
Well, I can't really comment on Nova Scotia because obviously we were busy enough to look at our storm, okay? And so I'm not in a position to comment on Nova Scotia Power. What we did is that from day one we communicated to customers, and we had lessons learned from the previous storm, and we had put them in place.
That's December.
And we did move very quickly to communicate to people, and the people we could not reach, we found other ways. For instance, by day 3 and 4, because people had no internet, you can't see.
Oh my God, people were freaking out. It's not the food, there's no internet. What were they supposed to do?
They can't go to the website, and the phones wasn't working. So what we did is we reached out. We found out that there were some people, that needed transportation, that, had no water, and, that can get quite uncomfortable when you have very hot days. So we had to, fly some some people through helicopters. We
Really?
We work with Emergency Measures Organization. This is one of the lessons learned from the previous storm. We work very well with them. Their new Deputy Minister, Craig Dalton, was very, very helpful to us. So we were working hand in hand to ensure that the people that were the most vulnerable were reached. We also asked people, where they can do, what's the information, any information they could give us. The damage was so severe and so spread out that it took us 4 days to fully evaluate the impact of the storm.
What about the, yourself, there's a lot of trees that's still standing. They're barely standing.
Yeah.
And the next windstorm is going to come crashing down. Are we ready for all this?
Well, we are, we've increased our tree trimming program. People have talked about that a lot. I believe I had actually raised the budget this year by $1 million before the storm, before the first storm. And when we had the December storm, we had also agreed that we would raise it by $2 million next year, which is 33% increase in budget within 2 years. So we are going to take advantage of the situation right now that people understand now how important it is to prepare, but also that trees and the power lines, they're not compatible. So we're going to take a more aggressive approach in how we go trim the backlots, and we're going to do some this year. We already made arrangement with the town of Rothsay, the city, and all the cities will be approached the same way. We can't do it all in 1 year, but we're going to take the areas that were hit the hardest first, because like you said, there are weak root system right now because we have lost a lot of trees, 4,000 alone, I'm told, in the city of Fredericton.
What do you say to poor people in Stanley? Good old Petticoat Junction, out of nowhere, Stanley. You know where that is?
Yeah, I know where that is, and I know there's a lot of damage there too. And for instance, we've hired 50 woodworkers, employees of GDI actually, that we certified to help us cut trees. We're talking thousands of trees here all over the province.
Did GDI step forward like voluntary, or did we got to pay them?
Yeah, they step forward voluntary. They come in and they
Really?
They wanted to help. Whenever there's a situation like that, they always step forward. They did in December the same thing. They come up and helped us, provide wood in the operating centers or the warm-up centers. There was some fuel issues. They've been very good partners helping EMO and NB.
You're ruining this interview here. We're praising Irving. They might use that on their video. But they did step forward.
They did step forward. I can tell you one thing is that what I've seen in this storm is the best of New Brunswickers. People look after one another. The situation, even in my place, I was out of power for 6 days.
That's right, you were 6 days. Excuse me,
neighbors,
don't you have any connection with NB Power? Can you just?
I decided, just like everybody, the integrity is very important. And I told my employees, you treat me like any other customers. I'm just one customer, and and we want to work together. And it's much more bearable for customers if they feel that the utility is treating everybody fairly.
6 o'clock Saturday morning, you knew, you went, Did you contact the Premier?
Yeah, I had a few discussions with my minister first, obviously.
Craig Leonard?
Yeah, Craig Leonard, and he was very supportive. He understood the magnitude of the storm. He was hit in his area very, very solidly. We had some interviews actually together on Sunday morning, and we explained the situation. And then the Premier got involved as well, obviously. He was very present in the street. He actually went into some remote areas and provided some insights from people over there and fed them directly to my Director of Public Relations, Bob Scott, and also directly to me at times. This was a very serious thing, and we were able to really, by collaborating with EMO, to avoid really any serious injuries or any situation. I mean, a storm like this, it is quite, it's a miracle that, nobody got killed or seriously hurt.
What about these $300,000 home that don't have a generator? Maybe that's a learning experience?
Well, a lot of people, actually went and sought generators, especially with the food situation. And, but again, a lot of people did not have generator. I don't have a generator. And
are you going to buy one?
I will discuss it, whether we need it or not. What I can tell you is that a lot of the people, the ones that had generators in our neighborhood, actually shared it for an hour or two.
Where do you live? What street? I mean, what area?
In Tordale, Rosewood Estate.
Where's that?
It's west of Fredericton.
West
towards
Fredericton?
on the south side, going towards Mactaquac.
Okay,
around Muncie.
that there. Okay.
Yeah.
So
and the neighbors,
neighbors.
and I've seen that everywhere in town. You know, everywhere in the city, people would have a generator. They would share it with each other. You know, there was high acts of kindness. But with a generator, what I want to make sure is people have to be very careful. They cannot plug it into the system to result in potential backfeed onto the line.
Oh, really?
So they have to unplug their equipment and plug it directly to the generator and make sure that the generator remains outside the home, because these are typically gas or diesel driven generator, and they need to be kept outside.
So a lot of people move into these neighborhoods, and I call it snobby neighborhoods, but they got to know each other's, they got to know their neighbor pretty quick.
Well, all I saw is basically act of kindness and generosity and support. And yes, our neighbors, we have a very good neighborhood, but I saw it everywhere else. People were out, the minute I would walk out of my car, they would realize who I was, and they saw line works coming. There was no criticism.
No lynch mob?
No lynch mob, nothing.
Nothing.
I mean, we had many crews from Hydro-Quebec here, and they were saying how good our customers are and how patient New Brunswickers. And again, I saw in many of our crews, and that inspired them. That really energized them. They really were pumped up to serve customer well.
So we had people, how many workers from Maine? How many people from Hydro-Quebec?
Well, we had, you know, I don't have all the details, but we have a total of 300 and I believe 60 crew or 59 crews. We have 40 or 50 from Maine. We have about 118 crews, or close to 120 crews, that are vegetation crews. We've hired 50 more woodworkers on the ground, basically cutting trees when equipment could not access the backyards. We have 40 crews from Hydro-Quebec. We have some from Edmonton Energy, Maritime Electric, and we have some from Emera Maine as well. Nova Scotia was busy on their own, so we did not exchange crews between each other because we all had to clean up, you know, the damages after Arthur.
How come 3 days after the storm I left Miramichi and I drove from Miramichi to Fredericton and there were still trees hanging from the wires 3 days after?
Well, again, we had close to or around 4,000 outages around the province. 4,000. That's a huge amount.
That's a lot.
And when I say the impact, you know, we restored, really, when you count the multiple interruptions, more than 200,000 restorations. And so I think people have seen, you know, the reason I think they were understanding and patient is that they saw the magnitude of the damages.
When did you fly in the helicopter?
Not personally.
Nope.
I was actually, there was so much around here that I could access. You know, I've talked to over 40, 50 crews myself. I spend hours every day since Tuesday on the road. You know, encouraging crews, and also, you know, checking, you know, doing patrol. Today with the executive was serving food to the line workers. We put some efficiency program in place, learning from other storms. We are serving the line workers at their job location, and we also have some refueling trucks, and we're fueling the trucks at night while the crews are sleeping.
That's what David Roberts said. He didn't go up. He's seen enough on the ground that he doesn't have to go up. You know,
there was so much around. I mean, you know, and so we let the helicopters for the patrollers, the people, you know, that would be able to evaluate the damage ahead of us. We're looking at new technology that we could use in the future. Right now, it's called LiDAR. It's a digital imagery that we could fly by a plane or helicopter that could help us, you know, basically take picture of the damage and not have to dispatch people in the various locations.
If the damage is bad from what we've seen from the street, I could just imagine the forest inside.
Yeah, I know, and I know, you know, people have seen things, but you know, we've seen some, you know, hurricane, tornado type forces in small areas, like, you know, in one district, let's say Grand Falls. You know, we see some tornado force things in the peninsula. or in the East Coast, or along the Caracat Bay. But to see something that hit 85% of the province,
And nobody got
once,
killed.
and nobody got killed. So
That's amazing.
that is amazing, and I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for all my customers who are working with us. Yeah, there are a few that are frustrated, and I understand their frustration. I mean, no water, no power for 9 days, 10 days. It is not fun.
After December and now, you know how to answer that. If the power goes up next year, people going to be upset? The power hasn't been up for how long? 4 years now?
Well, the power has been. We had a rate increase in October last year, and we just announced another one but only 2%. I know 2% is still a lot for some people that are on fixed income, and I really understand, that is difficult for them. But in 5 years, we have raised our power rates by 4%. I believe there's no other utility that has done that. So I think our team have worked really hard. We heard from our customers that they wanted low and stable rates, so we did some efficiencies, and now we're incorporating those efficiency lessons in even how we're managing our storms.
Did you lose your food, you?
Lose some food, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I had 2 daughters as well that had houses, and one lost half for food, and the others, we put some ice, and so we had to really work together, my daughters and I, to make sure. Unfortunately, I give all the credit to my wife. Because I wasn't there most of the time. My wife was running between the 3 homes, and my house was out for 6 days, and my 2 daughters were out for 7 days.
From any disaster, any crisis, there has to be a good thing come out of this. What's going to come out of this?
Well, what's come out of this is the compassion and the New Brunswickers' spirit of the kindness, the generosity. You mentioned it, the neighbors that were chatting with each other. I know at home we played some society games,
And no internet.
Yeah.
No internet.
Yeah, no internet, and but you know what? I think there was a detox for a lot of children. So it was good.
Yeah.
It was everybody had a chance to do what we live 20, 30 years ago.
And we got to adjust to what's coming. We're going to get some more. Climate change.
Yeah, well, climate change, I think, it is difficult to predict, but what we can do is prepare. And not just the utility. Every customer has to prepare. One of the things we look at improving is the communication. So we're looking at maybe an FM station available to communicate to customers. And the first reaction to that with people would be, we don't have a radio. It can't. There are radios that works on batteries. There is a thing called a battery that is very effective, and so I think the least we can have in preparation for climate change is to have a radio with batteries, and flashlights, and and a plan. I think we have a plan as a utility what we do. I think every customer should have a plan of what they would do in case of a storm.
And CBC got a kicking there. They didn't cover this too well. I mean, they weren't too. I know the cutbacks in CBC and everything, but the communication through the radio, even though if they had a radio.
Well, in fairness to everybody, a lot of people said that, that people didn't communicate and all that and so on. But I can tell you that I was on TV for 3 or 4 times, and the Premier and the Minister were out there, and people
bit more in the TV.
But when you don't have any power,
it's no good.
Yeah, people don't see. And
but the radio, that's important.
Yeah, the radio is a very important thing, and typically on weekends, radio stations have no staff now. No. It's all machines.
Money.
So that's why I think we need to look at what we can do. Maybe between the communication company, EMO, and B-Power, our shareholder, the government, we can look at having a system. Maybe apply for a radio station or a frequency so that we can reach out to customers.
Maybe we'll start an old blog and just have the Charles Ablower
or we can have you. But again, if it works on batteries, it's good.
Listen, you said the right word here. I don't have to answer this. You said our shareholder, the government. What do you want to happen if NB Power would have been sold to Quebec, Hydro-Quebec? You think there would have been riots right on the street?
Well,
You don't have to answer that.
yeah, I look, when you look at that, you know, it's a speculative question. But what I can tell you is that, you know, we are proud, NB Power, to serve our customers well. And our priority is the people of New Brunswick. And I can tell you that we treat everybody, you know, fairly. Yes, if you're at the end of the line on a rural area, it's going to take longer to get there because you have to connect the main substations first, and then you have to go on, you know, right up to the remote line. You can't start this way, because if you start from the back end, you would actually have no customer being reconnected efficiently. So our goal is to reconnect everybody efficiently. So you start from the centers, which are the cities, and they go out, you know, in a web, you know, a network that, you know, and we will work until we reconnect everyone. I promise that.
I think one of these days when you're no longer busy, you will draw a little map, a little art, show how it's done, because a lot of people don't know.
Yeah,
you know.
And that's what we did for our agents. They've done a very good job, you know, taking the calls and trying to explain that. But yes, the kinds of discussion we should have on that is actually prior to the storm. And then people can be prepared and they make a decision whether they need a generator or not, or what's the contingency. You know, communication, again, having batteries to be able to listen to radios, and we will continue to improve. Every storm, NB Power will get better, and for the benefit of our customers.
And I'm not kissing ass. Good CEO. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Charles.
Merci.